I lost 40 pounds on a plant-based diet and I've kept it off for the past 6 years. I'm on the squeaky ass things, if you can hear that. Like, seriously. By the way, this is what I'm sitting on. Fancy as heck YouTube thing. A chili bin. Over the past 6 years, I've seen myself go through very distinct weight loss phases. So what I want to show you in this video is how to know what phase of weight loss you're in and what to be focusing on so that you can actually get those long-term results. And this is very, very different from what I did before I lost the weight, when I was struggling with my dieting, binging, yo-yoing for about 10 years because I didn't understand what to focus on at different stages. And I see this all the time now where people start a weight loss or fitness journey and they want to jump straight into counting macros and doing intense training, basically doing all the fitness influencer things they see someone doing who is at the very end of their journey and actually in maintenance or building muscle or in an athletic stage of their journey. But if you haven't mastered the basics first, you're essentially trying to build a house on quicksand. It's just not going to work because it's not where you need to be for now. So let's break down what these 3 stages are and what you need to be focused on. And I'd love to know in the comments which of these stages you're at. As you identify it, let me know. Stage number 1 of weight loss is to master habits, fullness, and consistency. And back before I had lost the 40 pounds, when I was constantly yo-yoing up and down, the biggest thing that was the problem for me is that I didn't trust myself to stick to anything because I didn't have any evidence that that was the case. I didn't understand how much to eat for weight loss. I didn't understand what kind of foods to eat. And so I would always go into the most extreme version of something that I would see someone doing online and think that that was going to be what got me out of that cycle. But I could only ever do something for a very short period of time, either a week or a couple of weeks. I think the longest that I ever did like a fully raw diet, which was so difficult by the way, was like 4 months. I think I lost like maybe 5 kilos or like 10 pounds in that time. But within the course of a month, because it was leading up to Christmas, I gained all that weight back and more as soon as I quit. And this happened so many times. So the biggest priority when you're in this stage is to master your consistency, know exactly what it is that you need to do. And through doing this, you're going to build enough trust in yourself through evidence that you can go on to those things that do require a bit more discipline. So your goal here is not to do something perfectly. It's not to do something that feels very extreme and that when you lose motivation and you give up on, it's to build a system that feels so easy and so simple that even on your worst days, you're still going to continue doing it. You're safeguarding for the worst version of yourself, not planning for the best and most motivated, which is completely the opposite of what most people end up doing. And so in this stage, we're going to build, first of all, a handful, like a really tiny handful of rock solid habits. And then we're going to be improving on them over time. And I've talked about what these core habits are. I just did a video here where I talk about the 5 core habits that you need to master for weight loss, but I'm going to go over them really briefly again. The first one is to understand calorie density and to eat foods under 600 calories per pound. These are going to be mostly whole foods. They're going to be things like potatoes, rice, whole grains, beans, vegetables, fruits. You're going to stop as much as possible eating processed foods, and you're not going to worry about how much of these under 600 calories per pound foods that you're eating. By the way, if you want to have like a helpful chart and more information about how to do this, I created a free weight loss course for you, which you can see in the description. It has all of the charts, it has all the data about how to actually do this, so go check that out. Habit number 2 is you're going to cut out oil. You're going to stop cooking with it. You're going to learn to cook with baking paper when you cook on a tray. You're going to learn to saute with water. You're going to learn to make salad dressings and water saute in a way that doesn't require oil. And the reason for this is that oil is the most calorie dense food on the planet. When you cook with oil and you add it to your salad dressings and you just have it as part of your day, you're adding thousands of calories to your diet per week. So simply by eliminating it, you can much easier get into that calorie deficit, which is required for fat loss. And while you will notice it initially in terms of taste and ease of cooking, you're not going to notice its absence when it comes to fullness, which is the most important part at this stage, because we want to eliminate the need for you to have willpower. Which brings me to habit number 3, and that is to aim for 1 pound of vegetables per day. And I would recommend that you split this between lunch and dinner. So you're eating half a pound or half a plate at least of non-starchy vegetables at both of these meals. Habit number 4 would be to eat a lot of potatoes every single day. And I aim for at least one potato-based meal, but during my really intense weight loss phase, when I was in this phase myself, I ate potatoes at least 2 times a day. And hopefully you notice that all these foods that I said to eat and to eat a lot of are under 600 calories per pound. We're not going to worry about how much of them we eat, because the most important concept with what we're doing here is that we're trying to increase fullness, help you to eat a lot more food, not less, while also lowering down the calories of your day-to-day meals. And when you do this, this is what creates weight loss magic, because it allows you to eat more, bypass the need for staying really consistent through willpower, through motivation, through extreme intensity in terms of like you just like white knuckling it, because you're going to feel fuller and more satisfied than what you normally do. You're going to eat more food in this stage than what you normally do, but then you're also going to be reducing your calories down. You're going to be reducing them down because you are eating less at your day-to-day meals, because potatoes and vegetables are lower in calories than what you would normally be eating. But not only that, because you are eating more volume through your pound of vegetables per day, through cutting out oil, through eating foods under 600 calories per pound, and a ton of potatoes, which are the most satisfying food on the planet, you're also going to up your consistency. And what happens when you up your consistency is that you are going to be eating less calories overall. Because even if you stuff yourself with potatoes, and this is what I did, this is literally the framework that I followed. When you do that, when you have a massive meal that is full of potatoes, that is full of vegetables, no oil in it, that has a whole lot of flavor added in, that you are just absolutely packing into your body to feel as full as you possibly can, your desire to binge and how hard it is to stay consistent is suddenly going to disappear, or at least mostly. And so in this stage, it's so important that you flip your idea of what weight loss is from fast, hard dieting, which is never going to last because it's never lasted so far. So it's not actually all that quick because you never get there, to how do you build systems that keep you very full. And so in this stage, you're not worried about when you stop eating at night. You're not worried about skipping meals. You should never be skipping meals in this stage. You're not worried about honoring your hunger and fullness cues. You're not worried about eating when you're hungry only. You want to shove food into your face, but make sure it's the right kind of food. And something that was so important for me in this stage for myself was healing from the restriction and the binging that I had done so many times. I was so used to feeling such a strong trigger from hunger to go and have a binge that when I started eating this way, I was able to satisfy that by actually still eating a lot, not feeling bad about it anymore, even though like I did initially, because I would see the weight still coming off. That over time, that kind of hunger that I had, that kind of impulsiveness to just overeat actually went away because I could get satisfied. There is something psychological that happens if we restrict food for a long enough period of time. And my parents used to look after foster kids sometimes. Like we used to do like respite care. And I remember one of the girls that my parents looked after who like very sadly had basically grown up, and she was like quite young, but she had basically grown up with not enough access to food. And so every single time that she would see myself or my sisters or anyone in my family with food in their mouth, anytime she saw food at all, she was so obsessed with it because she hadn't had enough. And I think that we're mostly the same. If we've done a lot of restriction in the past, if we're not used to feeling full and satisfied, then that is going to taint basically everything that we do. So in the later stages of weight loss, you can get more in tune with your hunger. But if you struggle with any kind of consistency, and until you are super consistent, you do not need to worry about honoring your hunger and fullness in the same way that someone who is at the later stages maybe does. Because it's not your battle to fight just yet. You need to do whatever it takes to improve your consistency. So how long would you expect a stage like this to last? In this stage, you are mostly focused on improving your habits. You are focused on creating these core weight loss habits that I've talked about many times. By the way, all of this is outlined in the course that I created. And you're going to be in this stage for most of your weight loss journey. If you've got 40 pounds to lose, you would expect to be in this stage for 6, 7, 8 months, potentially even a year, whatever it takes to get them very, very close to their goals, depending on how consistent they are. And what's going to happen in this stage is that you're going to go from not trusting yourself to now having evidence because you've done something and you've set the bar for willpower much, much lower. So you've been able to jump over it with enough repetition that you've just become a different person over that time. So you never want to move out of this stage until you truly believe and know that your habits are so solid that nothing is going to shake them. Not a weekend binge, you get back on track very quickly, not going out to eat with other people, not an emotional time, not your period, nothing like that. You want to be so solid in your behavior before you move on to any other stage that you know that you can do this for the rest of your life. That is going to take months. I'd love to know in the comments if you are in this stage right now, or maybe you're not even here and you want to get into it, in which case, congratulations, that's all you need to focus on for now. It's exciting because you can eat as much as you want and you don't need to worry. All right, stage number 2. Once you've got those basics mastered, you're going to start refining what you're doing. So typically this is going to look like refining your day-to-day meals and then also your consistency for things like the weekend or any kind of the additional treats that you might have had in your diet up until this point. Typically, this is going to happen when you have about 10 pounds left to lose, maybe 15, depending on where you land, maybe 5 if you don't have a lot of weight to lose. But most of this is really about where you are in terms of like your habits and the repetition that you've put in stage 1. The litmus test for this is asking yourself whether your habits are second nature, whether they are going to be rocked by anything. How quickly do you get back on track? If you get back on track extremely quickly, if your consistency is like 90% most of the time, if you are not someone who is going to sabotage based on how you feel, if you can stay consistent whether you feel like it or not, then you kind of know that you're at a stage where you can get into stage 2 if you want to or if you're there. But again, you don't have to. The only time that you really have to or even need to is when your weight loss starts to slow or stall, or you're looking to break a plateau. And by the way, you will hit plateaus in stage 1, mostly due to inconsistency. So no matter what, even in stage 1 or 2 or 3 or any stage, you're still asking yourself what your consistency is actually like. Are cookies sneaking back in? Do you need to eat another potato so that you can stay more consistent? Do you have oil sneaking back into your diet? Are you actually eating your pound of vegetables every day? Keep coming back to those core habits and your non-negotiables when it comes to your consistency. And until those things are solid, like you're not worrying about anything else. But when you reach a genuine plateau, which means that you've been plateaued for more than a couple of weeks and you're at that lower body weight, this is where you start to dial in your hunger and fullness cues. This is where if you are to go hungry for a short period of time, it doesn't cause a binge. It doesn't cause you to go and give in to your cravings. In this stage, you want to be able to experience a little bit of hunger and it doesn't actually derail your behavior. So if you're finding that hunger does derail your behavior, you're nowhere near this stage, even if you've only got 10 pounds to lose. It's much more about your behavior than it is just even like your physical body. So at this stage, you are going to be experiencing like a bit more hunger, or at least playing around with it. So these will be things like stopping at a certain time of night to eat. It's going to be things like really thinking about the food that you're eating. And then if you are getting close to fullness, like maybe like 80% fullness, you put that food away for a little bit. You're going to be slowing down your eating. You're going to be more thinking about adding in more vegetables to your diet. You're going to be thinking about lowering the calorie density down a little bit more, which could be things like swapping out a little bit of squash for some of the potatoes that you're eating. It could be having less snacks or swapping the fruit that you're snacking on for something like vegetables. Basically what you're doing is just lowering your calories down more through your behavior, but still keeping that very consistent. And anytime that you notice your consistency starts to get less or worse, you go back into your habits from stage 1. You can flip in and out of these at any point. The goal is to always have your consistency high. And at this stage, you also want to simplify your meals way down. So this is where you might be having something that most people would be considering boring. So your lunch might look like what my lunch looks like, which is typically broccoli, tofu, and potatoes. And I don't really stray from this, no matter what I'm feeling like. Your meals need to be so consistent, whether that is the weekend, whether you are going out to eat. This is where you would typically stop snacking at all, and you'd probably start cutting out desserts as well. So think in stage 2, you already have this baseline of habits and behavior where you can feel like a little bit hungry, or you can feel the need to do something different. You can deal with boredom essentially, and you can still stay consistent. And the funny thing that you're probably noticing from this is that most people try to skip to stage 2 instantly when they change the diet. Like your stage 2 kind of boring set meals or your meal plan, the things that you see fitness influencers do, like most people are trying to do this from the beginning when they have absolutely no trust and evidence that they can stay consistent to anything, let alone like rice and chicken, which is what most fitness influencers are doing, or some kind of like boring salad every day. At this stage, like you want to basically have food be autopilot for your life. Like you don't even really need to worry about food anymore, because you've got so much consistency that you can refine it down and it doesn't even really affect your life all that much. It's going to be a little bit painful, but you can get used to that very quick. In stage 2 as well, this is where you want to be adding in strength training. And you can do strength training right from the beginning, but you're going to want to be a lot more intentional in this stage to be building more muscle. And so what's going to be happening at the same time is that you're going to be building muscle slowly, while also dialing in to what will be most likely your core maintenance habits. And at this stage, like you want to be strength training at least 3 times a week, because that's going to allow you to start changing your body composition. And the reason that I didn't mention exercise in stage 1 is that for most people, like your consistency is going to be so low, your habits are just not there yet, that it's much better to focus on the food first and then start adding those in as habits, but not really worry about whether you do them too much, because the biggest thing that's going to influence your weight loss is going to be your nutrition. But at stage 2, we're moving now from the focus being on weight loss to the focus being recompositioning your body to prepare for maintenance and then building more muscle as well. And whether you think that building muscle is important or not, it is, because it's going to help you to maintain your weight loss. And it is going to also mean that you can eat more food at maintenance, because you are going to have more mass. You're also going to look better when you get to whatever weight it is that you want to be at, even if you are heavier, because you're going to have more definition in your body. And like for context, I'm now about 10 pounds up from my lowest weight. And so when I was in my lowest weight, I was in this stage 2, and I was starting to strength train. I was refining my diet down. And now that I'm in like stage 3, or that I'm in that kind of maintenance, like I actually gained weight, but I'm leaner. I have a lower body fat percentage at the weight that I am today. It's much easier for me to maintain at where I am today, because I built muscle over time. And at this stage right here, you're probably going to be here for about 6 months. And some of the things that you probably will feel in this stage is that you want to get leaner, and your body doesn't look quite like how you wanted it to at this stage. It's going to feel extremely slow. It's probably going to take you the same amount of time to lose those last 10 pounds as it will have for you to have lost like the 40. You're not going to see as fast results, but at this stage it's okay, because you are building something different. You're building a long-term strategy here. You're tweaking your diet a little bit because you are a smaller person at this point, so you are going to need less calories to still be in a calorie deficit as you did when you were 30, 40, 50 pounds heavier. But at the same time, we want to be increasing muscle mass, so you don't want to be in a huge calorie deficit. And most of the time you won't be if you follow these kind of guidelines. And a word of warning at this stage as well, and this is definitely something that happened to me, is that I started to think that I really had to refine my diet down so much to get much leaner or to look lean, even though I had lost the majority of weight that I wanted to. And like even between like 2 or 3 or 4 pounds, there was like a huge difference in how my body looked. And I found myself consistently trying to like lower my calories further. And I did this for like probably like 6 months to a year. And it was incredibly difficult. And I think most people do go through this, which is why like understanding what stage 3 is going to be so important, and why adding in strength training at this point is also incredibly important. I think that most people just have to go through this stage of trying to get smaller and then realizing through a little bit of trial and error that it is just not going to be super sustainable or actually give you what you think it will give you. But you're going to need to refine your diet down a little bit in order to understand that. So that brings me to stage 3, where you're going to be focused much more on body recomposition in terms of building muscle than you are on dieting. And so at this stage, you might not love exactly where your body is. And most people are going to find this. And this is where there's like a little bit of a gray between stage 2 and stage 3. I would say, like, if you've mastered the basics and then you're thinking about, you know what, I want to be a little bit leaner, I want to change the way that my body looks, like I want to be more sculpted. It's like I maybe have like 2, 3, 4 pounds, maybe like 5 pounds to lose. This is probably the stage where you want to actually stop worrying so much about losing weight and reducing your calories further, and you want to just focus on strength training, because you are going to recomposition your body. And in order to do that, you actually don't really want to be in a calorie deficit anymore. You're going to be building muscle, you want to be fueling that build, and that's going to make you look more of how you want to look without actually having to reduce your calories down, which is crazy. Like I love the way that I look so much more now, even though I'm like way heavier than I was. And so in this stage, you're going to be wanting to hit the gym like 3-4 times a week, very intentionally with how you train. Like I would really recommend that you're following some kind of program at this stage. You're not just there to show up, you're there to really train and really to progressively overload your muscles. It's so nuanced because we have to filter every single thing through what is optimal versus what someone's actually going to do. And the most optimal diet, which is what most fitness influencers are going to be promoting to you, which would be easy for me to say, the most optimal way of losing weight and building muscle at the same time and doing all of these things at the same time is not actually something that people are going to do, because they don't have the habits for that. So optimal is filtered through habits mastery, which is why we need to start smaller in the beginning and then layer some things over time. So in this stage, I'm going to say, like, you want to be eating more protein, and probably you're going to do that a bit more in stage 2, being more intentional about protein, making sure that you are eating like more tofu, more edamame, having some protein powder most likely in your diet. But in stage 3, you really want to prioritize this. You want to be eating at least like 90 grams of protein, which is not going to be that hard to do if you have a scoop of protein powder in the morning, you have some tofu with your lunch, you have some more, or you have like beans and tofu, TVP, some more like high protein sources in your diet at least 3 meals. And honestly, even that is probably on the lower side for like what most people think of as a high protein diet, but it's going to allow you to be having enough that it's going to be easier to build muscle, but it's not going to make it too hard to stay in like a maintenance or like a slight surplus. And at this stage, you're going to shift from like what you're seeing on the scales and what your body looks like to performance. You're going to be thinking about how my body feels when I'm at the gym. You're going to be thinking about how strong do I feel when I'm doing certain exercises. You want to be tracking your progress, tracking your performance, tracking how you feel, tracking things like body composition in terms of getting like a DEXA scan, and then tracking like how much muscle that you gain or like your body composition. You're probably going to see in this stage that you go to potentially even a higher body weight but lower fat. And there's this cool like little bit of data that if you track and have like a body scan like every month, like you're more likely to build muscle and gain fat, because like what we track, we pay attention to. And almost like I don't even really need to talk about this stage, because most people watching this are not going to be here. But the reason that I wanted to add this in is that stage 2 and 3 are what most people try to jump to. And what most of the people that you see who are at their end of their journey, they are in these 2 stages and they're telling you to eat like them and to train like them. But when it comes to achieving any result, you want to model the rise, not the end result. The rise and the climb is how someone got there, not what they do now. Because what they do now is what gets them to maintain what they have gotten. It's a mistake that most people make, where they think that I'm just going to do what someone who has my results does, as opposed to what they did to get there. People see this like lean, muscular, disciplined person and they want to model what they do now. But you can't start there. And for most of the people, I would say 99% of the people watching this video, you're in stage 1 and you're going to be there for a long time. Without the foundation of stage 1 and the experience of stage 2, one bad week is going to make you quit. Not being perfect and not being able to achieve the standard that you're not ready to achieve yet is going to be demoralizing, and it's going to make you feel like a failure. So if we come back to stage 1, which is the most important part, because it's the foundation of everything, then you really just have to get a little bit better. You don't have to get everything right. If you eat vegetables with a takeout pizza, you are doing better than what you did last week. If you are slowly getting out of an all or nothing cycle, if you get back on track faster than what you normally would, if you go to the gym for 5 minutes when you would normally just stay at home and watch Netflix, then you are improving, which means that you can get to the destination as long as you don't quit. Stage 3 is sexy because you don't have to worry about weight loss anymore. It's exciting because it actually is finally out of your brain and you can focus on things that are much more important, but also more impactful to how you actually look and feel. But stage 1 is the boring work that most people want to skip, and it's where the magic happens. So let's recap on what this looks like. Stage number 1 is you're going to master habits. This is going to be through improvement. It's going to be through focusing on fullness that then leads to consistency. And most of the videos that I create and the content that I create in general is about mastering this stage. Stage number 2 is most likely where you're going to be very close to your weight loss goals and you've mastered stage 1. You know that nothing is going to derail you, and you're going to start refining your diet to be much more boring while increasing your strength training. And then stage number 3, if you're there, you probably don't need help. You've probably got things figured out, but it's something maybe to look forward to, and at the very least realize that you don't need to focus on right now. So take stage 3 less about instruction and more about what probably to avoid right in this moment. Building muscle is freaking fun. Eating more is amazing, but it also took me 6 years to get here. But I'm still here, which never happened before. So I want to hear in the comments, which stage are you in? What stage are you looking forward to? How much weight are you trying to lose? And what's one habit that you can focus on this week to start making progress? That's it from me. I'll see you next week for another video, and remember to check out my free weight loss course if you want more help and the exact frameworks for how I lost the 40 pounds. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.